Good day, family. Look, I'm trying some hibiscus flowers. Yep, I'm out of tea, but I bought some cloves, and then I bought me some hibiscus. And for a little flavor in my water, I just put it in my water. Whether you have warm water or hot water for your tea, or just cool water out the refrigerator. I like my water room temperature, but this right here is just a little tap water because I don't have any more water. And just let it soak off in there. It's so good to see you. Today, it is good to see you. I hope you had a wonderful day today. And if anything did get by, I hope you banished it to the depths of hell. I hope you called on your ancestors and you gave gratitude. I hope you sang a song today. Anything that was off, that came your way, I hope you send it back the other way. I hope y'all know we're supposed to transmute it into love. You can do that too, if it's on your heart. But I hope you didn't let nothing get you down today. Yeah, but it's good to see y'all. We gonna get started early tonight, ain't we? Let's see. Yeah, let me grab the rules, because you have to read the copyright disclaimer, and and I don't want that to be the reason that I'm not hearing stuff, because that face thing got, Hey there, how you doing, Elijah? It's good to see you. It is good to see you. Yeah, it's morning there. All right then. Yeah, well, it's a.m. here. Yep, it's a.m. 12 o'clock a.m. Yeah, it's like, what, 12:08, something like that, 12:05. But, yeah, it's good to see you. It's good to see all of y'all. I see you, Elijah, and your name, but everybody else, I see you there. Thank you so much for your patience and your presence, and let's begin. Let me read the copyright disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. And that is in quotations, that fair use. So whatever that's meant to be. But we're going to go ahead and get started reading, y'all. And we know I am Face the Nation. We own Bolden Unchained, and we're here to assist Black America. We are here to assist Black America. What's wrong with my people? I've heard it being asked more than once why we can't come together. What's wrong with us? And it makes sense. It's a question that needs to be answered. And I wasn't seeing, where I'm at, anyone trying to answer that question. I do see people that were trying to answer it, but it's not here. It was missing us again where I'm at. So yeah, that's what I had to do. Yeah. But it's good to see you. Well, hello there. How you doing, Hank? How you doing? Oh, I now sure don't. Yeah, but I don't know. I see everybody else doing it and stuff. I really didn't even research it or nothing. If you have to do the copyright disclaimer, I just see everybody else doing it. I see my sisters and my brothers doing this stuff. So I thought, it must be important, especially when I read it. And I knew I wasn't going to memorize it. And I still might not memorize it. But I wrote it down so I can read it. Yeah. But we are on chapter 9 tonight. We getting there. We getting through this. And this here is the Emancipation of Robert Sadler. And Robert really wanted to tell his story, and we've been reading it. I'm glad we chose it. I'm very thankful that we did choose his story. He wanted to tell his story. He wanted his story to be known. What happened to his family, his mother, his sister, the baby, Emma, and then there was Pearl. So we've been reading, and he's still young. He's only 6 years old, and his father done remarried after his mother died, some old heifer named Rosie, and her 2 kids. And that story was really his life with them, him and his sister's life with them, because his father was selling all the kids, sold all of them. but he ended up with Pearl, his other sister again. And that story of them, his experience living with Rosie and her 2 kids was like Cinderella, where they ate, had the conference, and just laying on the couch, and he on the floor taking the scraps, and very horrific life for him. But he's back with Pearl now, his sister. Well, now at this stage in the book, he's in the big house. He's working in the big house, and the master and his friends done beat Pearl almost to death and burned her, so she's at home back on the slave quarters. And I was thinking today, I knew a friend by the same name as George Murphy. Was that the brother's name that they, yeah, it was George Murphy. I was thinking about that today. I was thinking about George Murphy that I knew. He passed on some years ago, I think. But yeah, because I started thinking and stuff, and it was like George Murphy. Then I remember, I actually knew a George Murphy. But yeah. So let's read tonight. Let's read. We ain't gonna finish it, but maybe we'll get to at least 19, 15. I think I can do 6. At least 6 chapters. Yeah. Oh, it's 12. Well, on that clock, that's a little bit fast. So let me just gauge the time and stuff, because I don't want to keep everybody here all night. Oh, hey, Calvin, how you doing? It's so good to see you. Come on in. We finna read. Yep. We finna read. Oh. And anytime y'all ready to read, let me know. Yep, let me know when you're ready to read, because it keeps saying that I can add somebody on here. So if you're ready to read, that's good. Come on, let's read. Yeah. Chapter 9. The winter days were long, and I was worried about Pearl. On a gray, windy afternoon, he done started taking stuff from the big house and taking it to Pearl, because she's sickly and ill now, since they done beat her and stuff. And poor George Murphy, they beat him almost to death too, but in his pain and stuff, he said he was going to work tomorrow. And the next day he got up and went to work. So George Murphy, didn't I say George was going to be the love of Pearl life? But he wasn't disfigured that, because remember in the beginning it said he was handsome. He was still himself. And Pearl is beautiful, even beside the scars and stuff that she got. But isn't it something that now he's scarred too? He's scarred too. They were already heartmates, I believe. But now they're both scarred heartmates. At the same hands. By the same hands, the same master and his friends that did those things to Pearl, her master, was the same ones that took George on the outskirts of the town and beat him. Yeah, let's read. The winter days were long, and I was worried about Pearl. On a gray, windy afternoon, when there was a lot of activity around the big house, I planned another escape to the quarter. Visitors were expected at the big house that evening. I was put to work cleaning the halls and the bathrooms. All day long, tension filled the air. Mistress Bill was shouting orders. The house slaves were running around trying to obey him. The children were underfoot and misbehaving, and Mary Webb was throwing things in the kitchen. In my effort to avoid everybody, I got in everybody's way. Not only did I receive the heel of Miss Bill's foot, but of Mary Webb's and Harriet's as well. Robert, get out of here. Robert, you brought in wet logs for the fire. Get out there and bring in dry logs. Robert, get over here. Robert, fetch some water. Robert, scrub these pots. Robert, you ain't nothing but something dumb. I was made to scrub the wooden planks of the front porch and the steps and the wooden walkway leading to the circular drive. My hands in the icy water were numb, but I hardly noticed it because I was so excited about seeing Pearl again. I planned to make my getaway to the quarter when everyone was asleep that night. Every once in a while, I thought about Margie. And I wondered if they were treating her bad where they had taken off to. They sold Margie. I wondered if she was a house slave like me or a field slave like Pearl. I longed to see her, even though Pearl is disfigured and stuff now because they hurt her hands and stuff is still, especially from the fire and the beatings and stuff. But she working in the field now. She was working in the house, the big house. Now she working in the field now. When the chores were done, the house slaves were allowed to eat stuff in the kitchen. Fatback fried crisp, cornbread and molasses. I asked Big Mac some questions that he seemed to understand the meaning of. Where Hartwell, Georgie? A long ways off, boy. How long? Too long for you to think about. It was just yonder. It was just yonder down the road. It would be too far for you to think about. I looked at him sadly. Margie and Hartwell, Georgie. Big Mac finished his food and said somberly, let me tell you about a woman who used to live on this here plantation, boy. I listened closely. She quite a woman. Her name Lois. A good worker. She work in the fields like a man. And she bring 3 little babies into this world too. When she done bore her 3rd baby, the boss, he called and he say, you leaving this place tonight. You done been sold to a new boss. It done tore out her heart and she screamed and she cried and she begged the boss. Don't send me from my children's. Please don't send me from my children's. She saying children's. Don't send me from my children's. Please don't send me from my children's. But the boss, he don't pay her no mind, no how. And he pack her up in the wagon. When she screamed and grabbed his leg, begging him to let her stay with her children's, he give her a kick in the face. And she fall in the ground crying and praying to Almighty God to help her and help her children. They throw her in the back of the wagon and off they goes down the road. They took her more than 100 miles away, way across the state to a great big farm where they put her to work in the field, cutting cotton stalk. She done ran away one night. She was so grieving for those children. She just had to get to her children's. She done run night and day through the woods, the marshes, across the rivers, in the wilderness, and the towns. That woman done run to get back here to her children's and her man. She knew that no man slave could take care of her children's. They didn't catch her no how. She got as far as up the road here, just a mile away. She was half dead from running and being hungry. She got up here just about a mile. His voice broke. Mac's strong, wide shoulders crumpled and shook. And he sighed. He sobbed and gulped. Oh, Lord, he cried. She got all the way to the plantation. Just a few minutes from her babies who was crying for their mammy. I said still, my heart beating loudly. They done catched her and throwed her in the jail until the new owner come and fetched her. She never saw her children again. She made it 100 miles to her baby. Her baby, she had 3 babies, said she made it to her man and her babies right up the street. I wonder if they could feel her, if they could feel her. 100 miles. And they didn't catch her no how. They didn't catch my sister. Sure didn't. The resilience that's in us, all we got to do is wake our asses up. This is the end of everything that's been laid against us, against them. Tears burned in my eyes. The agony of being torn from those you love was common to us. Big Mac pulled his shoulders back and said quietly, boy, that woman was my wife. It was his wife. got a lot of respect for him now. Big Mac. The visitors arrived, and I helped carry their traveling cases to the guest rooms. 3 young children eyed me with contempt as I moved around the rooms. There was food prepared for them, and the 2 families sat down to eat in the dining room. From the kitchen, we could hear their laughter and loud talking. Master was not yet home, but we expected him soon. At last, the white folks went upstairs to their rooms. When the children were in bed, I set to work cleaning up after them and helping in the kitchen. Merriwell, Harriet, and Daisy were cleaning and preparing for the next day's meals, and when nobody was looking, I sneaked out the door of the sun porch and ran through the yard, careful to dodge any light spots. As I made my flight, I had forgotten that Master Bill had not returned home yet. I got as far as the woodpile when I heard heavy footsteps in the dark. I froze in my tracks and listened. Soon the hulking form of Master Bill approached. It was too late to duck. He had already seen me. "Who's that?" he demanded. Robert. Master Bill, sir," I answered in a voice barely audible. He was drunk and could hardly balance himself. "What you doing out here, nigger boy?" he asked with a growl. So it would have sounded like, "What you doing out here, nigger boy? What you doing out here, nigger boy?" I quickly answered, "Fetching wood, Master Bill. Sir, I be fetching wood." He growled again and staggered toward the house. "Get moving then," he said over his shoulders. He was drunk. Oh, drunk. With trembling hands, I filled my arms with pieces of wood and hurried back to the big house. That was my last attempt to get to the quarter that winter. It was many weeks before I got another opportunity. The next days brought merrymaking and fun for the Bill family and their visitors. They had activities planned for each day, and the house was filled with the sounds of their voices and the smells of liquor and tobacco. It was at this time I got my introduction to a torturous form of entertainment, which gave them much pleasure. What did they do to this little boy? After breakfast one morning, I was bringing in water from the well on the porch to be put on the cook stove, just to heat. "Robert," Daisy said from the door, "Master calling you." I hurried as fast as I could and practically ran to the parlor where he was sitting with his friends. He had already been drinking. I could tell by the way he sat and the crooked look on his face. The fire was going in the fireplace, and the room was cozy and warm. "Put some coal on the fire, boy," ordered Master Bill. "Yes, sir, Master Bill, sir," I responded properly. I bent to pick up the coals as I was told, when suddenly I felt a searing pain in my back, and the smell of burned flesh stung my nose. I whirled around, shocked and yelping. Master Bill stood behind me with a red-hot poking iron from the fire. He was laughing, and so were his friends. "Let's see how high you can jump, slave boy," he called, jabbing the poking iron into my belly. The burning pain caused me to fall backwards onto the floor. He continued, laughing hilariously. "Oh, that ain't high enough, nigger boy. Let's see you do a little jig." He thrust the glowing end of the poking iron into my face, and I rolled over and scrambled to my feet, crying and squealing in terror. "I said a jig, nigger boy, a jig." Again, the poking iron came at me, and I hopped out of his way. Again and again, he pushed the fiery end of the poking iron at me. I leaped and hopped and turned and twisted each time to escape its sizzling my flesh. Sometimes I made it, but sometimes I didn't. When the iron bit into me, tearing the skin off, I screamed and yelled, much to the master's delight. Their laughter and their excitement over this sport built to a frenzy as I wept and begged, "No, master. No, please, master," jumping around the room to miss the deadly sear of the iron. At last, and I'm telling how long this took. At last, when they tired of their fun, Master Bill shouted, Stand still, nigga boy. I did, shaking and crying miserably. Then, with one final jab to my body, he said calmly, "You didn't put any coal on the fire, boy." Those burns took many weeks to heal. Master Bill loved to show off on his slave boy. And for 8 winters, when guests came, I was often called to put the coals on. There was no such thing as doctor care for the slaves on the plantation. The animals had better medical treatment. Many slaves died during the winters from exposure and hunger. Disease and filth were common among the shacks in the quarter. Death was a victory. One miserable day after another passed by, and I didn't know any better but to believe I was what they said I was, a dumb nigger boy with no soul. I was the little puppy dog who did the dirty work for the white folks, and that's all my people was meant for. And the white folks expected us to be grateful for the honor of serving them. They had some kind of idea that we should be happy as slaves, as if they weren't slaving and dying, as if we weren't slaving and dying. We were supposed to be singing and dancing and being just plain dumb and happy. Like, I didn't feel that way, but I acted that way. I had to. We made it to chapter 10. We made it to chapter 10. The spring of 1918 came, and the plantation buzzed with activity. The overseers returned to their jobs. The slaves were put to the fields, and the cultivating was begun. Everybody was nervous and tense, and tempers flared continually. Then came the rains. It rained night and day. It was cold too, and the mud was deep in the yard. I made my runs to the woodpile to catch a glimpse of Pearl when the slaves filed by on their way to the field each morning. I'd see her bent, downcast, moving toward the field. I'd jump with joy. She'd lift up her head and smile at me for a flashing moment. My heart would sing at the sweet sight of her. Then I'd watch her disappear over the hill and down to the deep muds of the field with no shoes on. And Pearl was sick. She was weaker than she had ever been. Each day I'd run to the woodpile at the same time, and each day I'd see Pearl moving behind Buck and Corey toward the field. Some days the rain would be falling so hard that I could barely see her face, but I knew it was Pearl, and that's all that mattered. One morning when the rains had passed, I stood at the woodpile waiting to catch sight of Pearl. But when the slaves filed by, I didn't see her. I didn't see Corey either. I knew it was a very serious matter for a slave not to show up for work. They could get whooped practically to death for that. I dropped the sticks in my hands. "Buck," I called, "where's Pearl?" Buck looked down and said in a low voice, "She be ailing, son." He moved away before I could ask more. I hurried to light the fires and fill the wood boxes, and then I told Big Mac, "I'm going to Pearl," not caring whether I got whooped or not. I ran out of the house as fast as I could to get to the quarter. I arrived at Buck and Corey's shanty out of breath and scared to go inside. I took a breath at last and rushed through the door. Pearl was lying on Buck and Corey's cot making awful, rasping, gurgling sounds. Corey saw me and tried to turn me away. "No, son, sister's ailing. You oughtn't see her just now." I screamed and threw myself at the bed. I could form no words with my mouth. It was as though I had never spoken. She was little more than a skeleton as she lay there gurgling and glassy-eyed. "The rains," Corey cried. "The rains done did her in. They sent her to the fields with her ailing. We begged for a doctor. We begged for a doctor." She buried her face in the folds of her skirt and just sobbed. Pearl lay half conscious in the dark of the shanty. It was damp and cold in the room, and she had no covering on her. Her feet were caked with dry mud. She had still not gotten any shoes. I could see the scars on her body from the beating she had last summer. There were shiny gray pits and holes on her arms, her legs, and neck. Her once beautiful face was now just a few bones with skin stretched across them. Only 15 years old, and she looked like an old lady. She wore a rag of a dress and was covered with mud and filth. She was suffering terribly. For a brief moment, her eyes focused on mine. She struggled to speak. Everything gonna be. Her lips turned upward in a tiny smile, and she reached toward me with her tiny, deformed hand. You'll be a big boy now, child. So from somewhere in my mind, I heard laughter, and I saw again her black eyes dance happily in the sunlight, and we were tumbling in the grass as she tickled my nose, then my chin and neck. Her smile fixed itself on my face, and it was once again summer, somewhere my Pearl and I frolicking, laughing, and she telling me with her sweet kisses and squeezes there was hope. There was hope. The hours of the morning passed by, and I stayed with sister, never taking my eyes from her face. I gasped with each painful breath she took, and then they stopped. Her eyes were wide open with a look of desperate agony when it happened, and her mouth hung stupidly downward. There she lay, everything pure, beautiful, and alive that I had known. Pearl's tortured body lay still now. I kissed her hard, cold face and held a lifeless hand to my body. The grass was gone, and the sun in my life had gone out. So we made it to chapter 11, y'all. We on chapter 11, and that's just one page. Chapter 11 is just one page. Summer 1918 arrived without my knowing it. I didn't feel the air turn warm. I didn't see the trees bloom, didn't hear the sound of the birds playing around the windows. I didn't see or feel a thing. Pearl was dead. Somewhere in the dense fog of these days, however, a particular day stands out. It was a Sunday afternoon, and the Bills must have been out on an outing because there was nobody around and it was very quiet. I was sitting on the wooden steps outside the kitchen door in the heat of the afternoon with nothing but the sound of flies buzzing around me. I looked up and saw a large-boned, barefooted Negro wearing tattered work clothes coming across the yard. It was a dangerous thing for a field slave to come up to the big house like this. He came nearer, and then he was standing before me with his face close to mine. "It's me, child," he said softly. "Buck." I said nothing. He smiled a kind smile. "How you doing, child?" I stared blankly. He was only 6, maybe 7 years old now. Then after an awkward pause, he said, "I had to come up here because I had done promised Pearl I would. You hearing me? You'll be 7 years old now, child. You was born June 27, 1911. Hear me, boy?" I said nothing. He spoke to me with tears in his eyes. I watched his mouth and his wet, dirt-lined face without interest. Then while he was still talking, I stood up turned my back to him, and went into the house. Summer passed and the autumn came. A new duty was given me by the master bill. I was to hitch up the buggy for the white children to go to school every morning after I brought in the wood and lit the fires. I did this vaguely and stupidly. It didn't matter to me what they had me do or what they did to me. I went along with it all and felt nothing, thought nothing, and said nothing. Chapter 12. The grueling days of spring and summer had passed. Autumn was gone and winter was settling in on the plantation. I thought of Pearl continually. It seemed that everything reminded me of her. Winter reminded me that she had no shoes when she died. I was still wearing the same shoes they had given me over a year ago, and my toes were bent and crushed in them. I wore them without socks and I wore my only trousers and shirt night and day. My new chore of hitching up the wagon for the children to go to school became the most interesting part of my life at this time. I decided I wanted to go to school too. One day I gained courage enough to ask Master Bill if I could go to school. Please, Master, sir, I said in my best speech. Can I go to school, sir, please? Master Bill rocked on his heels and laughed. You nigger slave boy, go to school. What should you do there? I was lucky I didn't get the back of his hand or the heel of his boot for annoying him with what he said was dumb nigger botheration. With what he said was dumb nigger botheration and damn uppity. Every morning I helped the children climb into the buggy with their lunch baskets and their books. I wanted to go to school more than anything. I would wait for them to come home in the late afternoon. Teach me about book learning, I'd beg. Thomas, who I played with the most because we were the same age, would tell me what he learned each day. He was the teacher and I was the pupil. I drank every word in hungrily. Juanita and Virginia would play school with me too. And once in a while, John would even join in. He was 10 years old now, and his meanness was growing with each new year. It was not long before I could count to 10 and write some numbers. Juanita taught me how to write my name, which I thought was the most wonderful thing to be able to do. I would write Robert, R-O-B-R-T, 100 times a day in my mind. They were good days. I can truthfully say that we were close and enjoyed each other's children. I had no rights, but I enjoyed their wanting to play with me. I didn't care about their hurting me. They were playing with me right then, and I liked that. The winter of 1918 enfolded us. Sometimes the temperature dropped below freezing, and twice that winter we had snow. I would go out to the wood pile to bring in the wood with my feet squeezed into my shoes, without socks, hat, or covering for my hands. Why didn't they just cut the toes off the shoes? Give him the other shoes. Set him free. Let him go back down to his family. He's just 7 years old. Let's read. It was during the coldest part of the winter that Daisy, the house slave who helped Harriet, died. She had given birth to her third baby, and a few days later she was working in the big house and doing the laundry outside. Harriet tried to keep her from working so hard, and she did twice as much herself, but it was hopeless. I watched Daisy writhe in pain on the kitchen floor, and then a week later she was dead. Since Daisy didn't have a husband, they gave the baby to another nursing mother in the quarter to care for her. I overheard the overseers in the dining room talking about her the day after Daisy died. She would have been a good enough breeder. I heard a gruff voice say, "It's a damn shame." Daisy had been born on the Bill plantation and didn't know any other life than slavery. She would have served the Bills another 50 years without complaining because she didn't know any better. She was illiterate, obedient, brainwashed, and handsome. That is why she could be given the tribute of being a good breeder. She thought that was part of life, too. The many hours I spent each day in the kitchen were in dreaded fear of Mary Webb. She always had a bottle near her and drank heavily. The Bills never seemed to mind because they liked her cooking and the way she treated black people. Her motherfucking ass. Mary Webb hated me. I still carried the scars on my face of the biscuit pan that she heaved at me. Remember, she threw that cast iron biscuit pan and hit him in the forehead when he was like 5. I think he was 5 when she did that. Daisy had gotten along with Mary Webb. She knew how to stay out of her way. One night while taking swipes at the kitchen floor with the long, clumsy straw broom, I muttered, Master and his children don't hardly care no how that Daisy be dead now. Big Mac heard me and whirled me around by the arm, with a hard look in his eye and in his cold, stern voice. He said, boy, you stop looking for someone to care about us, you hear? It's a fool nigga who can't live by himself. You understand what I'm saying to you? If a white man care about a black man, it's a peculiar thing. I ain't having no nigga child living with me who's looking to make a friend out of the white man. He was real angry. He had never raised his voice to me before. I was so surprised, I stood with my mouth open, staring at him. Yo, learn to care for yourself, child. There ain't no place in this whole world to hold a weeping nigga, he continued. His face was tense with emotion. Yo, learn yourself to care for yourself. If you love somebody, child, sure enough they'll take them from you. Just like they done did with your sister Pearl and your sister Margie. Now you stop looking for mercy from the white man and start looking for Robert to be a man. A hush fell over the kitchen. Even Mary Webb was silent with her motherfucking ass. Harriet, who felt real bad about Daisy, suddenly picked up her head and began to sing. I stood still, staring at Big Mac, who stood glaring at me, waiting for me to acknowledge what he said. Yes, sir, I said faintly. Harriet's voice was deep and rich as she sang. They's a coming with the chariot. I know. They's a coming with the chariot to carry my pole bones home. She was singing her last respects to a girl she loved. Mac's words had touched her, and she knew all too well there ain't no place in this hell world for a weeping nigga. I done worked and I done sweat. These old bones is a going to rest. Old chariot, carry me home to Jesus. And that's all they knew was Jesus. Days are coming with the chariot. I know. Days are coming with the chariot to carry my pole bones home. When she had finished the song, it was finished in her heart as well. She would never talk of Daisy again, and not another tear for her would escape from her eye. She accepted it. That Daisy was free. It was not until much later that I learned Daisy was Harry's oldest daughter. One afternoon when I was playing school with Thomas and Juanita, Master Bill appeared in the doorway. His eyes flashed. What's going on here? He demanded. Thomas answered innocently. We playing school, Daddy. I'm the teacher. You learning this nigga to read and write? Yes, sir, said Thomas proudly. Yes, sir. Like he the teacher, he the master already. Master Bill was so angry he grabbed a chair and threw it at Thomas. It just missed him. Get! He shouted at me. I scrambled to my feet and fled from the room. Huddled in a corner of the porch, I could hear him shout at the children. If I ever catch any of you learning a nigga to read and write again, I'll whoop you so you won't sit down for a month. I heard the smack of his hand against each one of the children's faces, and I heard them cry. It was goodbye to school learning for me. The winter months. This chapter 13. The winter months dragged slowly along now that there was no more play school for me. The children avoided me. but I knew they missed our special times every day too. I still tried to read their books, and I practiced writing my name, but I couldn't do any more than that. It made me sad, and I moped around the house. Harriet saw me pouting one afternoon, and she snapped, "Why's you sad in the mouth, child? Ain't for no little slave child and no reading and writing." "George Murphy knew reading and writing," I responded. "George Murphy was no slave. He'd be a free man when he come here." I thought for a moment. Is they really a law that say a man ain't supposed to own another man? Harry's face was thoughtful. If they's a law, Massa Bill ain't knowing of it. George Murphy said a man's supposed to get paid for his work. That George Murphy. He be big on the talking side. "Harriet, what's a law?" "Well, I don't know exactly for sure, but I do know it is where they put a big sign up, and everybody who say the sign got to do, and everybody who see the sign got to do like what the sign say, like what it say." "Is that all the law be?" "I do believe that be all that it be." "Well, maybe Massa Bill ain't see the law. Now you's talking up." It was very confusing to me, but I didn't want to ask any more questions. Uppity is what they call George Murphy. When the children came home from school, I would be waiting to unhitch the pony. Thomas began to toss off orders at me and talk crudely to me. He grew less friendly and more mean and nasty, just like his motherfucking pappy. John, who had always been mean, grew worse. One day he and Thomas laid waiting for me, and as I rounded a corner carrying wood to the kitchen, they leaped at me and beat me until I was lying bloody and bruised on the ground. Since I was not allowed to fight back, I tried to cover my face with my hands and hunched my body to miss some of the blows. Sometimes I would try to run, but they always caught me and beat me worse for trying to get away. One warm Sunday morning in early spring, visitors arrived at the plantation. We had been preparing for their arrival for days. I watched them coming and then hurried alongside Big Mac to unhitch their buggy. They were a handsome family. The father was dressed fine, and he had dark hair combed straight back and slicked good, and the mother was stout. With a round face and big hands. The three children were fat and looked very uncomfortable in dress clothes. I guess they were around my age. Big Mac and I carried their bags and parcels up to their rooms in the big house. After their evening meal, the two families went strolling on the grounds outside. I heard Master calling for me. "Robert, come here." I came running. "Yes, sir, Master Bill, sir." Then he turned eagerly to his sons. "Okay, boys, get it." Like wild dogs, the boys descended upon me, kicking and hitting and pounding. I went down immediately. They yanked me back to my feet, and then with a hard blow, sent me sprawling to the ground again. The others cheered and shouted in delight. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the faces of the visiting boys. They looked as though they were in ecstasy. This ain't gone nowhere. The oldest one had spit running out of his mouth, and he was grinning a horrible grin. Honey, if that ain't a motherfucking clanimal, I promise you, if you could just see it in your mind's eye, these are not regular people. Again and again, I went down with the blows. And then, finally, when I nearly lost consciousness, they stopped. But it wasn't over. "Oh, give me a lick at him," shouted one of the boys. "Give me a lick at him." There followed then a series of dirty punches and pinches. One of them poured down my trousers. Another one sat on me. Again and again they hit. "He just 7. I cried and screamed for mercy. But it was no use. When they were finished with their fun, they went skipping off, laughing and out of breath, to the stable to get horses for riding. Then it was quiet. I could smell honeysuckle through the dust and blood in my nostrils, and I could hear insects chirping happily in the grass. The sun was beginning to set, and the sky was bright red. From the branches of a willow elm a few feet away, I could hear the high squeaky singing of a cowbird. It was many days before I could walk without limping. And each day I dragged my body through my chores, trying not to cry or faint. It was July before I could move normally again, although my body would never be normal again. Motherfuckers. Harriet got 2 new girls to help her with the house, and I was given the added chores of tending the flower beds and keeping the lawn and yard clean. All other hands were in the fields. One afternoon, Master Bill announced, "Robert, you're free to go to the quarter when you're finished with your chores in the evenings and on Sundays. But you better do your chores good, and you get back here by a proper time." I was overjoyed. Oh, to play with children who were black like me. I did my chores that day happily and eagerly. I finished early and ran with a jerky limp to tell Big Mac where I was going. He grinned at me and stuck some tobacco in his cheek. "Get then," he said softly. The squalor and filth of the quarter looked like heaven to me, and I approached the rows of shacks. I walked along the dirt and mud around each shack, drinking in the smells of salt pork frying and whole cake baking in the ashes of hearth, the hearth, where you like the fireplace where you cook and stuff. I looked at the tiny gardens beside some of the shacks with carrots, cabbage, and turnips growing. The boards that made up the walls of the shacks were far enough apart to lay a dog. The setting sun spread across the land in gold and silver streaks, and the sweat and dirt on the faces shone in the light. My heart swelled to see the black faces of my people. Sitting in the dirt or on the wooden plank before their doors, they were like angels. Worn, beaten, dirty, stupid, beautiful angels. I gotta read that again. The squalor and filth of the quarter looked like heaven to me as I approached the rows of shacks. I walked along the dirt and mud around each shack, drinking in the smells of salt pork frying and whole cake baking in the ashes of hearths. I looked at the tiny gardens beside some of the shacks with carrots and cabbage and turnips growing. The boards that made up the walls of the shacks were far enough apart to lay a dog. The setting sun spread across the land in gold and silver streaks, and the sweat and dirt on the faces shone in the light. They ain't seen them yet. My heart swelled to see the black faces of my people. Sitting in the dirt or on the wooden plank before their doors, they were like angels. Worn, beaten, dirty, stupid, beautiful angels. But they were honest. They were humane. They were honest, humane. Something white folks never was. "Robert!" I heard a voice call. I turned and saw Corey Moore standing and talking with another woman. "Robert, child, I declare!" I ran to her and she grabbed me in her arms. The smell of her was acrid, wet, and wonderful. She crushed me in the dirty cotton of her dress, and I pressed my cheeks against the soft nape of her head. "Thank God," she cried. Soon she was calling people to come and meet me. And then I was surrounded by staring children and smiling grown-ups. Only St. Peter at the pearly gates was missing. The time went by quickly. Before I left to go back to the big house, Corey took me to her shack to see Buck and one other person. As I entered the shack, I saw Buck sitting on the bed, and in his arms was another person, a tiny newborn baby. "We done got ourselves a boy child," Corey announced. It was a warm and happy reunion. Only for a brief moment did my mind stray back to the last time I was in that cabin when Pearl lay dying. "Yo, looking a little fat, child," Corey exclaimed as we sat together in a few remaining moments. "Oz? Yo lives." We laughed heartily. I held their little baby. I held their new little baby. And that night back at the big house, my spirits was flying. Night after night, I fled to the quarter. The days weren't so bad because I had something to look forward to. One Sunday afternoon, after the Bills had left for an outing, I went to the quarter to play with the children. Here comes that house, nigga, one of the children spat. I was stunned. Here comes that tongue. It was the first time I was called that. It was a terrible insult. I recorded and stood ready to defend myself. They feed you chocolate cake and tapioca up there in the big house. Whitey's favorite little nigga boy, huh? Ha, ha, ha. Robert loves the pale face. Robert loves the pale face. Robert loves the pale face. I leaped at one of the boys and began to hit him. The other children joined in the fight, and I found myself wildly hitting and punching. He was finna beat everybody's ass because he wanted to beat the hell out of Thomas and them motherfucking asses. I got a hold of one of the boys who had been taunting me and pounded his head on the ground. My rage grew each time his head hit the ground. Then I felt myself being torn from him. And before I knew it, I was dangling from the fist of a large black man whom I had never seen before. You trying to kill somebody, boy? He snarled. Don't you come around here causing no trouble. Here, stay up at the big house. Now get. He dropped me from his grip and I whirled around fiercely, making words as best I could. I ain't no Tom. I was a black nigga slave just like y'all. Next one called me a Tom, I was gonna kill. I stood my ground and then slowly turned my back on them. I walked toward the shacks. Nobody made a move to get me, but I knew what they were thinking. They really believed I was just a Tom, a no good Tom. I wandered around the shanties of the quarter, listening to the sounds of the people. Singing, babies crying, sounds of people living too close to each other. Moving, living, loving, hating. There were smells of liquor, tobacco, sweat, and cabbage cooking. The sun was hot and the air was thick and humid. I knew how conspicuous I must have been. But somewhere inside, I believed that it was only here that I would find friends. I refused to be a coward and run back to the big house. As I walked along, I looked at the faces of the people he loved. Lined, streaked with dirt and skin oil, they looked at me blankly. But near the end of one row of shacks, I saw a face that looked back at me with kindness. Hello, honey. A woman with white hair tied up in a rag, wearing a dirty calico dress and spotted apron, sat on the ground outside her shack. Hello, ma'am, I answered. Where you from? I be from the big house, ma'am. From the big house? Oh, then you up there with Harry and with little Daisy who passed. Yes'm. That be Harry's shanty right over there. She pointed to a broken down wooden shack surrounded by great dirt like all the others. And sitting in the front were 3 small children, just sitting there staring. I wanted to go and talk to them, but I didn't know what to say. Sit down, boy, offered the white-haired woman. Her eyes were warm and friendly. I sat hesitantly in the dirt, looking across the path at the children in front of Harriet's shanty. It was hard to imagine Harriet here in the shambles of the quarter when I had only seen her in the environment of the Bill household. I had never seen her with a black baby in her arms. And these little ones in the dirt looked like they were in desperate need of a mammy to hold them. The old woman saw me staring at the children. Jerry, Amos, Agatha, come over here. The children looked up and with listless movements ambled over to where we were sitting. Master done took me out your field and set me to caring for the children, the old woman told me. These here babies is some of my babies. She folded them into her arms, and they seemed to melt into her. She kissed their heads and smoothed their cheeks with her bent, gnarled fingers. What's your name, boy? Robert, ma'am. This here be Robert, children. He worked with your mama up in the big house. The children brightened somewhat. I stayed there for over an hour. The old woman's name was Celie, Ceily. She seemed to be peaceful, and I found that I liked talking with her. He's still only 8. You say your prayers, child? She asked me offhandedly. Prayers? I asked surprised. I don't reckon so, ma'am. Yo don't pray? She asked incredulously. No, ma'am, I answered, wondered if I had done anything wrong. Well, I don't reckon I know how you done lived this long, she said. Must be the Lord saving you for the day when you would look up at him and shout, hallelujah, Jesus. Huh? Where's your mammy? She dead, ma'am. Then she never prayed with you, boy? I thought for a moment. I saw a picture of my mother sail through my head. I saw her fine, high cheeks, her large, sad eyes, her light brown skin. I heard her voice again singing softly in the hot, empty cabin. I blinked and said in a low voice, I reckon my mama done prayed, ma'am. Yo know what I'm going to do right now? Miss Celie asked with a broad smile. No, ma'am. I'm going to pray for yo. Right now. I'm going to pray the good Lord come and show you how he died for your sins so your kin can go to heaven when you die. Heaven? Heaven, I asked. Do they be colored people in heaven? Celie laughed. I expect so, child. I expect so. She laid her hands on me and in a soft, droning voice, prayed to her heavenly Father. She seemed to know quite personally. I felt kind of light and happy inside. His ass done forget. I felt kind of light and happy inside as I made my way through the rows of shacks to the path leading to the big house. I deliberately passed the boys who had bullied me. If I ran from them, I'd never have face in the quarter. They watched me but didn't do or say anything. I passed Buck and Corey Shanty, and they were sitting outside against the house in the heated shade. Oh, Robert, Corey called as I came near. I done forgot to tell yo, ma'am. Yo be 8 years now. Yo be 8 years old now. So he done forgot about them telling him that black people are slaves in heaven. I'm telling y'all, you better not take your ass up there. Go on if you want to. Go on if you want to. Yep. Oh, look. We're on chapter 14. We doing it. We doing this. We're going to get to chapter 16, y'all. We're going to get to chapter 16. I was not too eager to return to the quarter after the fight with the slave children. I didn't want any more trouble. I began instead to take long walks around the plantation. I know that's right. I discovered the location of the dreaded overseers' houses. To my amazement, they were little better than the shacks the slaves lived in. Thrasher's house was a small whitewashed cabin with a tiny garden growing alongside it, and a small shed for his horse and tools. I saw Mrs. Thrasher hanging out clothes on the clothesline and playing around her with some poorly dressed babies. Sometimes in the afternoon, I would hide in tall weeds and watch the slaves in the field hoeing cotton. I saw the whip rise and fall, and I heard the low, mournful voices singing and groaning as they labored. Because remember, they had to stay bent over. Remember, I think it was Pearl or Margie, the other sister, had broke posture when they were picking cotton. Everybody got to stay bent over. If you stand up and break posture, they whip you. They whip you. There was never a time when I left the big house that Big Mac didn't know it. Sometimes he would be in the yard, cleaning fish, or in the back kitchen, putting up pork, but he always knew when I was gone. When I returned, he'd be waiting for me. Watch yourself, boy, he warned me. And if master was drunk or in an evil temper, this was all I needed to keep out of the way. Because he would let him know, watch yourself, boy. Yeah, one of their asses, either him or the motherfucking demon seeds of his. One day I returned from a walk in the woods alongside the far field. Mac was pulling water from the well on the porch. With one look, I knew there was danger in the kitchen. I ran from the porch and hid alongside the house. And from there, I could hear Mistress beating the new house girl who had not pleased her in some chore because her motherfucking ass couldn't do it her goddamn self. Oh, look. My tea done turned the color of the hibiscus. You know, hibiscus is that red, pretty drink. Let me taste it. It's good. It's a little bitter. Ain't got no sweetness to it. Oh, yeah. That's it, y'all. No more sodas and juices and stuff. Get your herbs and stuff. Drop you some clove, some mint, some bay leaf, some hibiscus in your water. There you go. You don't even need no sugar with it. Stop buying all that sugar and shit. This is it. Yeah. I sure thank y'all for being here too. But let's read, okay? The girl was about 13 years old, pretty, with very black skin and a strong body. Her name was Tennessee. Ain't that something? Tennessee. Mistress hated her, and she hated her name as well, that bitch. And took to calling her Caroline instead. That motherfucking bitch. Hell no, I don't forgive they goddamn asses. I hope the motherfuckers rotting in hell while they burning. Tennessee didn't like that name and refused to answer to it. Tennessee never moved quickly and never seemed to be afraid of master or missus. Whenever mistress screamed at her or hit her, she just sneered or looked at her with cold hatred. There was nothing mistress could do to break her. Then one afternoon, when master was in the house, Tennessee sat down at the white folks' table and buttered herself a piece of bread. Even Mary Webb was shocked. She reached for a knife to throw, but as she did, master entered the kitchen. I'll handle this. Tennessee didn't even look up. She just took a bite of the bread and sat chomping on it. Master watched her eat the whole thing and didn't say a word. I thought sure there'd be a killing, but Master Bill just turned and didn't even say one word. Living in the house that summer was like sitting on a keg of dynamite. Tennessee wasn't for the bullshit. God damn it. Sure wasn't. Her motherfucking ass is ready to set the whole goddamn house on fire. Sure was. I know. Come on, let's read. Let's read. Yeah, I ran to the quarter often. Wait a minute, let me back up a little bit. There were always fights. Mistress and master fought and yelled at one another whenever they was together. The overseers fought too, because there was a lot of rivalry and jealousy among them with their poor asses. I ran to the quarter often during these months to see Miss Seeley. She was always happy to see me. I would help her with the slave children in her charge if I could. Tennessee brought down the large cauldron of corn mush at noontime for them, and she would linger for a moment to talk. Miss Seeley was so filled with compassion and mercy that even Tennessee warmed up to her. One of Miss Seeley's 7 sons was sick in bed. His name was John Henry, and he was about 18 years old. He had worked in the field since he was 11. The bed he lay in was only a 12-inch slab of wood with a little pile of sticks for a pillow. In the humidity and heat, the dirt floor of the shanty was wet and muddy and smelled bad. I sat with John Henry and dipped cool water on his face. He had the fever and moaned all day. Seeley prayed over him and didn't seem to be at all worried about his condition. The Lord's healing is on him, she said confidently. Yeah, the Lord's healing is on him. One day when Tennessee came with the mush for the children, she had a jar of honey tucked under her skirts, which she presented to Seeley. It's for your son who be ailing, ma'am, she said. Seeley took it and they came into the cabin to John Henry's bedside where I was sitting. I saw John's face when he saw Tennessee. It was as though a little light went on in his eyes. He done fell in love with her. John Henry got well just like Seeley said he would and was back picking cotton in a couple of days, honey. In a couple of days. Honey, you see why we got to get our shit together? Let's grow together. Yes, honey. Us and our gardens. It's time. Yes. He would have died. He would have died if Tennessee hadn't brought him that honey. She probably put that together herself. Sure did. Tennessee, where's she from? Memphis. I digress. Every chance Tennessee got, she would be at Seeley's shanty, or else John Henry would be at the shanty where Tennessee lived. I noticed that Tennessee was becoming a little more lively. On a bright August morning when the slaves were all in the field and I was helping peel apples in the kitchen, I was given charge of baby Anna again. I wasn't very happy about it. Why can't Tennessee or one of the girls mind Anna? Yours ain't the question, Robert. Master done give the order. I wanted to dislike the blonde-haired 4.5-year-old. I had no intention of treating her with any kindness. Go ahead and climb up on Robert's lap, honey, Miss Harriet prodded. Anna looked up at me with sparkling blue eyes and a shy smile, and then she threw open her arms and climbed into my lap. Her arms went around my neck, and she giggled so softly. She giggled softly close to my cheek. Her face was filled with trust, and she had no mischief in her eyes. Not yet. Not yet. Robert's gonna mind you now, here. Little Anna giggled and seemed very pleased with the idea. With her trusting look, happy nature, and loving personality, Anna brought back memories of my own little sister, Ella. I found myself playing the games Ella and I had played, and once again, I had the love and trust of a small child. Honey, that's a motherfucking small demon. That was, yeah. Maybe he transmuted. I don't know. Maybe the love was there and it helped, to humane the little girl. Let's read. I don't think so. Everybody can lie and pretend. When the shit hit the fan and that decision got to be made, there is no question or hesitation that little girl going to choose her own and be just like her own. We just seem to be under the impression after every chore and every motherfucking child that they gonna not be like their parents and shit. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed to be Anna's maid, though. And I hated it when other slaves saw me minding her. I knew they were calling me a sissy and a tongue. It made me angry. Sometimes I took this anger out on Anna. Come here, Anna. What you want, Robert? I'm gonna whoop your hide. Ah! I scared her practically out of her wits, but then I wouldn't do anything to her. If she cried, I'd feel a certain sense of fulfillment. One Sunday afternoon when the Bill family was gone, I went down to the quarter to visit Miss Seeley. She was praying for her son, little William, when I got there. Little William was about 12 years old and his mind didn't seem right. He would take to yelling at the air or kicking and throwing his body around as though something invisible were attacking him. I sat with her outside the shanty with John Henry, and I got to talking about Anna. Miss Seeley heard our talk and didn't like the part about my bullying her around. Child, you need Jesus. I looked at her surprised. Did you ever ask Jesus to fill your heart and forgive your sins? Not to my remember. Well, that's what you need to do. You need salvation. That's what you need. You're doing an evil thing up there in that big house with that child, and the Lord wants you to repent of it and ask him to save you so you can be his boy instead of the devil's. A man's revenge don't mean nothing, child. It's the Lord who do the revenging. He know how better than any man know. Revenging. I want you to peace, boy. And I'm going to teach you how to pray. I did as she said, and I heard myself talking to an invisible person called Jesus. John Henry quietly prayed beside me on his knees. Something happened to me that day. I knew even then that something had taken place, something wonderfully great. Celia told me to pray every day, and she began to teach me the Lord's Prayer. I was eager to learn, and I drank in every word. Our Father, which art in heaven. Cotton picking time was the worst time of the year for slaves, but it ended like that, yeah. Cotton picking time was the worst time of the year for slaves because they were driven so hard. After they returned to their homes late at night, sometimes not until almost midnight, they had the cooking for the family to do and the tending of their own tiny gardens. 12 o'clock at night. They had only a few hours in which to sleep at night. Oversleeping meant a whooping or a whipping. Then something terrible happened. Seeley's boy, little William, became an informer. He was paid by the overseers to give information about the men and women in the quarter. An informer was worse than a tongue because an informer was a traitor. Little William would sneak around listening to conversations and trying to find out if anybody was planning on escaping or if anyone was saying bad things about the master. Hell, everybody should have been saying bad shit about the master. Mm-hmm. There was a lot more whoopings in the quarter, and everybody was nervous and angry. I knew it was dangerous for me to be visiting Miss Seeley with little William's eye on me. I was certain to get a few licks from the master. Well, hell, he told him he could visit the quarter. His mind is tore up, Celie lamented. Jesus, help him. Help him, Jesus, help him. Then all of a sudden, little William disappeared. Nobody knew what happened to him. Some said he escaped. He was missing for several days when finally he was found in the swamp under a cypress tree. His throat had been sliced from one ear to the other. The birds had already begun to eat on him. When they lowered little William into the grave, Miss Celie said quietly under her breath, Jesus done answered my prayer. He helped him. He's in glory now. Autumn was on its way. It was time for the white children to return to school. I had heard about a Negro school not far from us, and I once again began begging to go to school. It was hopeless. Master wouldn't hear of it. Schooling ain't for niggas. Having charge of Anna all day long made it almost impossible to get to the quarter. I had to stay near the big house with her. The only time I could escape the prison of the big house was on Sundays, if the Bill family went visiting. Thomas and John continued their sport of jumping me. One cool Sunday afternoon, they both jumped me right outside the kitchen door. I drew up with every bit of energy in me, took them both by their straight, slippery-ass hair, and with a swift surge of strength, crashed their heads together. We should have bust both of their motherfucking heads. They fell to the ground, and I then pulled them up one at a time and smacked them in the face and chest with my fist. When they got up, I hit John so motherfucking hard he went flying across the yard. When Thomas saw that, his ass took off running. I knew I would get a terrible beating from Master Bill for what I did, but I had discovered I could lick both of them, and I didn't care. Big Mac had seen the whole thing from the smokehouse where he had been working. When he came into the kitchen later, he was whistling, and then he hopped around doing a little dance. Tell me, Jim, what you got in that bag? Oh, Mary, saw a nigger with the master's boys. Law diddle, lawdy day. Saw that nigger done whoop they ass. Oh, Mary, Master gonna whoop that nigger tonight. Law diddle, lawdy day. I joined him in his whimsical dance. I whooped them once and I'll whoop them again. Oh, Mary. Yeah, he said he whooped them once and he'll whoop their ass again. I was delighted to see Big Mac's approval of what I had done. It was worth the whooping I was going to receive. It came supper time. It came sometime after supper. Master Bill dragged me behind the barn and made me lie down on my belly. He whooped me with the buggy trace. I pushed my face down hard in the ground so I wouldn't cry out. As I followed him back to the house, though, I was still happy about having taken his two boys, beat both of their motherfucking asses. When we got halfway across the yard, Master turned to me and with a funny kind of gesture, he said, I don't like to whoop you, boy. Mind yourself so I don't have to do it again. I'll turn Thrasher on you the next time. I thought for just a tiny second that he was trying to tell me he didn't like hitting me, not because it wore him out, but because he liked it me. The idea was crazy, but I kept it in my mind and I studied on it. The winter of 1919, that's because he had whooped both of their motherfucking asses. And had nobody ever stood up to his sorry ass like that before, since George Murphy. But George was an adult. This here was an 8-year-old little boy. The winter of 1919 passed, and as did the frenzied spring of 1920, with cultivating and planting. That spring, Tennessee gave birth to a baby boy in her little shack by the house, and she named him Amos, because she had heard her father's name was Amos. Master moved Tennessee and the baby to a cabin away from the big house. I think he was afraid Mistress knew the baby had a white daddy and would try to do something evil to him. That's why he didn't do nothing to Tennessee. Yeah, his ass sleeping with Tennessee, raping Tennessee. That's why Tennessee walked up in that motherfucking, give me that goddamn biscuit. A motherfucking knife. Give me some motherfucking butter over here. She told his goddamn ass she was coming to do this shit too. Sure did. While his ass was raping that shit, she was that motherfucker. When I come up in that goddamn kitchen and get me some motherfucking chicken, Don't you say a goddamn thing. Yep, sure did. Tennessee did. Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, let's read. The summer of 1920 was hot and long, and I was given permission to take Anna to the creek to wade and play. Do you got some mama, Robert? Anna asked me one day. I looked at her large blue eyes. No, child. I don't got no mama. My mama dead. Do you got some daddy? For a minute, I saw white lights pass before my eyes like lightning. The thought of my father aroused in me a sudden, unexpected fury. Huh? Do you got some daddy? I reckon I got some daddy, Miss Anna. Do he be a nice man like my daddy be? I looked at her little upturned face, the round cheeks, just right for tweaking. I reckon so. Yes, I reckon so. My daddy be just right nice, just like your daddy be. I sat at the edge of the creek, my feet stretched out into the water. Anna sat close to me, digging her toes in the mud. Robert, you knows what? Robert, you's be my honey, baby. I love you. She threw her arms around me, laughing happily. Anna would tell me what she learned in Sunday school each week. Jesus, he come down to be the Savior. Anna explained. Where'd he come from? He come from heaven. He come because he want the people to love God. It says so in the Bible. Someday, Anna, you'll be able to read the Bible, and then you can teach me all about the Lord. Anna sang a little song that went, He washed my sins away. He washed my sins away. Now I'm white, white like snow, for he washed my sins away. These words haunted me. So they in heaven. He done wipe their sins away. They already done told him now that the only reason they in heaven, if they is to serve white people. But he done forgot that part. Because Miss Seeley been telling him to pray every day and that Jesus will save him. He needs saving. Yeah, they fuck our minds up with this shit. I remember what Mistress Bill had said about the sins black people had committed that made our skins black and forever in debt to the white folk as their slaves. I wonder if there was a way for me to get my sins washed away and be made white as snow. But why would God make a sinner like me white and not Miss Seeley? She was a praying lady. Surely she would be the first one he would wash till she was white. Miss Seeley calmed me on the matter. Yeah, them lies, calm them with them lies. Honey, you is clean, you is washed clean just for the asking, she told me. When y'all ask Jesus to forgive your sins, he does it. That means yo is washed clean from your sins. Don't mean no color of your skin. It mean the color of your soul. Sin make the soul full of darkness, full of the shadowy substance. But when the love of Jesus come through and you get forgiveness from your sins, then you is washed clean. Your soul is white as snow. Ain't said a goddamn thing about the white folks. White folks. So he forgiving them too? He at this exact moment, he forgiving them too. I'm just saying. But a colored person ain't got no soul. Miss Seeley reeled on her heels. Listen to me, child. Don't you listen to them lies. You hear me? Don't you listen to them lies. When the white man tell you them lies, yo, just wag your head. Yes, no, sir. Yes, but don't you pay them no mind. They's a lying to you. Yes, ma'am. Seeley explained to me that God loved me and cared about me. It was very hard to understand, and I didn't grasp most of what she told me. She prayed over me and asked God to show me that he cared about this poor little old nigger child. In the shanty farthest down the line behind a clump of trees, A party was in full swing. Oh, honey, they were getting down. I could hear the music and the singing and the clapping of feet on the dirt floor. When I left Miss Seeley's, I walked toward the bleached and rotted wooden shack. Somebody had a homemade banjo, somebody else playing the sticks, and there was a drum made out of a piece of a tree trunk with a skin stretched across it. And above it all were the loud, exuberant sounds of singing. I stood in the doorway and peered into the shack lit only by one kerosene lamp. I watched as the men and the women stomped and danced together, laughing and hooting. Children were lined along the walls too, as well as outside the shanty. The air was thick with the smells of whiskey, tobacco, and sweat. I stood riveted in place, watching the bodies of the men and women twirl and whirl and strut and jump in the dim light of the room. It was very exciting. There was a formal kind of dance that had to be learned when we set the flow. I know, right? It was done with a glass of water on the head. Then we do another dance inside a circle, trying not to go outside of the lines. I stayed until well past midnight. The next morning, I asked Big Mac if I could go to the little church that the slaves attended. He wasn't too happy about my leaving the house. He made it very clear I had to be back before Master and the family returned from the church they attended, about a mile down the road. I scrubbed my face and put on my only clothes. Harriet had shown me how to clean myself in my own clothing. I washed my clothes about once a month, and I bathed without soap whenever I went to the creek. I walked to the meeting place with Miss Seeley and her sons John Henry, Isaiah, Jerry Ben, Fred, and Boot. Yep, you heard it right, Boot, B-O-O-T. We walked slowly and silently in the morning sun. The smell of honeysuckle was thick and sweet, and insects sang loudly along the path as though heralding us on our way. Miss Seeley wore a black dress with a worn, lacy collar. The boys wore clean overalls and toe shirts. All of us were barefoot. The church was a shack made out of logs with hay and mud stuffed in the cracks. There were 2 openings for windows with wooden boards that poured across them when they needed to be closed. Inside were wooden benches to sit on and a pulpit for the preacher. Because it was such a lovely day, the door this morning was closed and we filed by, following a path leading to a narrow creek which flowed into the Savannah River. There was a cluster of people already gathered by the little creek in the shaded clearing when we arrived. There were many warm greetings and embraces. The meeting began with singing. The singing went on and on. I felt elevated in the music, lifted far beyond anything I had ever experienced. There were songs filled with ecstasy and joy, songs that were lamenting and sad. They were a part of me, a part of everything I felt and I knew. In the dark and untapped places of my mind that day, I began to understand who I was and what I was made of. There might have been 100 of us there. I didn't know. I only knew the joy of belonging and the closeness of the God Miss Seeley had been telling me about. I didn't get back to the big house until afternoon. Big Mac was angry. Master's been back for 2 hours. Child, I ought to whoop you. He gave me a new chore then. Master told me to have you doing it since August last, but I thought it would be too hard on you. So I did it for you. Now you can do it yourself. Tomorrow you can carry water to the men in the field. You carry two 2-gallon cans and you'll do it every day. Here, now get it to Miss Anna. The excitement of the morning faded as I went to find Anna and began my work around the big house. I wanted to tell Big Mac all about the meeting in the woods. I wanted to tell him how the Negro preacher had told us that one day we wouldn't have any more troubles and that Jesus would take all our troubles away from us. He told us that God didn't like the way the white man treated us and that he would make them pay for it. Well, white folks just said that God is okay with it and they can do the same thing. They is doing the same thing in heaven where God is at. I guess that if Master Bill knew that the Negro preacher was telling us things like that, he'd have him strung up high on a tree. I prayed that the Lord wouldn't allow that to happen. And then I prayed something very strange. I prayed that the Lord would forgive Master Bill. Oh, my ancestors. Well, yeah. Chapter 15, this is it. Let me get through chapter 15. I can do it. Let's try to do this in about 5 minutes. You know where it's probably going to take a little longer. Yeah, let's go on and finish this. In 1921, I turned 10 years old. On a starry Saturday night in September, the Bills were invited to a party at another plantation. Master Bill was now the proud owner of a new automobile. That Saturday night, when I saw Buck Moore walk through the kitchen door of the big house, I jumped with surprise. Buck! Hello, Robert. What you doing here? I is Master Bill's chauffeur now. He done come down and give me this new job. Even give us a cabin closer to the house so I can be right near when he need me. Buck and Corey near the house. That night, he chauffeured the Bills to their party. I watched from the parlor window as they drove off, and I trembled with excitement. I had never seen such a fine automobile, and to see Buck sitting up so clean. He's so slick, driving it made me very proud. He was wearing clean overalls, and he looked young and strong. While Master Bill was at the party, Tennessee escaped from the plantation. She ran off with John Henry and her mulatto baby. Master Bill didn't realize she was gone till late Sunday afternoon. He went crazy when he found out, honey. He sent hounds. The hounds were sent after them, and he hollered for Buck to drive him to the nearest train station in town. His friends rallied together, and the search was on. I prayed with all my heart that they wouldn't catch him. Please, can I go to Miss Seeley? I begged Big Mac. Yo ain't going no place, Big Mac answered firmly. And I knew I couldn't leave the big house, and I would have to wait there for news of Tennessee and John Henry. The hours went by. Juanita in Virginia, the Bill's daughter, played tea party on the lawn beside the summer porch. Their laughter, like tiny bells, could be heard above the oppressive silence in the house. Mary Webb was overly busy in the kitchen preparing sweet potato pies for the white folks' supper, and Harriet was down in the quarter with her children. Big Mac sat in the shadows of the kitchen porch by the well, rolling master cigarettes. If Tennessee and John Henry were to make it to freedom safely, it would be a victory for every slave on the plantation. We would each know a little greatness for a time, but if they were captured, their torture would belong to all of us, and we would moan on our pallets, sharing their defeat. Sweat rolled down my body as I waited by the window in the children's bedroom while Miss Anna took her afternoon nap. Evening came, and Mistress Bill ate the sweet potato pie and baked ham with her children without master. There was no word at all. Mistress behaved oddly, and I heard Mary Webb say she was drunk. When they had finished eating, she took the children into the music room, and we heard the piano playing simple two-part melodies. I knew Juanita was performing. She played haltingly, studying the music every time the position of her fingers changed. Nightfall came. Juanita played on and on. The stop and start sounds wore on everybody's nerve, especially Mistress Bill's. She paced the floor of the parlor like a cat. I dressed Anna in her soft cotton nightgown and held her on my lap before putting her into her bed for the night. Robert, she cooed, snuggling her face against my chest. Robert, when I get big, yes, Miss Anna, when I get big, will you marry me? I laughed until tears came. I was afraid I might bust into sobbing, and so I lifted her from my lap, set her down firmly on the floor, and said without courage, I declare, child, don't you love me, Robert? Well, I expect I do. Then we can get married. I didn't answer her, and she bubbled on. I have to have a pretty dress and pretty white shoes, you know. Then I tell my children to be very, very quiet, and you can kiss me too. I love you, my Robert. I love you bestest in all the world. You's my honey, baby. Just sick. It was after midnight when the sound of horses' hooves woke me. I sat upright, listening. The other children did not stir. Carefully, I slid out of my bed and walked across the bare floor to the window. I could see nothing. I tiptoed out of the room and down the hall to the dining room. The room smelled of stale smoke and liquor. From the window, I could see the driveway plainly in the moonlight. There were at least 10 horses. The moon was full and shone on the forms of the horses. My heart pounded in my chest when I saw the riders. They looked like monsters from hell, like ghosts, apparitions of the dead. I held my breath for fear one of them might see me through the window and slay me with one evil look. They were all in white, like sails of ships that I had seen in the children's book. Their faces were covered with hoods, and they all carried rifles and sticks. It could have been the end of the world, and I wouldn't have been more terrified. So this is what I had heard about and never seen. This was the Ku Klux, the devil himself. Shaking, I clutched the edge of the curtain. They were shouting back and forth. One of the apparitions descended from his horse and strode to the front door. I froze where I was. Who would answer it? Mistress surely wouldn't. Big Mac was sleeping in back of the house and wouldn't be able to hear the knocking. I was the only slave around. The knocker sounded. It was loud and unmistakable. I didn't move from where I was at. The knocking continued. Sam! A voice shouted. Sam Bill! Then I heard a sound behind me. My heart stopped. I turned slowly without breathing. A man was sitting across the room in a straight back chair with his elbows on the dining room table. It was Master Bill. He must have been there when I crept in to watch out the window. Answer the door, boy, he said in a growling whisper. Yes, sir, Master Bill, sir. I hurried to the door and, with shaking hands, opened it. Where's the boss man? Asked the robed form before me. Speechless, I simply pointed toward the dining room. The form marched into the house. Ain't you got no lights here? He asked angrily. I scrambled to light a lamp. My fingers were trembling and I could hardly hold a match to light the kerosene lamp by the door. Seeing Sam Bill, the figure announced, We got the man down by the hollow. Sam Bill didn't answer. Do you want to hang him tonight or tomorrow? Tonight! Hang the devil tonight! I could hardly keep myself from crying out. Count! Lord, no! Usually they strung up a runaway when there was a crowd to watch. They made sure the other slaves saw the proceedings in order to discourage future escape attempts. First, they beat the victim unmercifully or tied him by his feet to be dragged by a horse. Then, when he was half dead, they strung him up. I had even heard where they cut the guts out of a man while he was still alive. After they hung him, they chopped off his head to stick on a post somewhere as a warning to other blacks. That was for rape of a white woman or something like that. I was so frightened I nearly fainted. I wanted to scream, to protest, but to do so could mean a hanging for me too. I want that nigger dead, Master Bill said quietly. When they left the house, Master Bill could hardly walk. He stumbled over his own feet in a drunken attempt to move quickly. We'll take my car, he shouted. Somewhere between the house and the hollow where poor John Henry awaited his fate, Master Bill donned his white Ku Klux regalia. I sobbed and cried out to God for mercy. When the sound of the horses and the engine of the car died in the distance, I flew out of the house, down the driveway, around the yard, and onto the path leading to the quarter. When I arrived at Miss Seeley's cabin, I found her on her knees in front of the hearth. Her face was drawn and wet with tears. She has not stopped praying since John Henry in Tennessee had fled. She did not know he had been captured, and she was still praying. And he was captured. She's still praying, and he's still captured. He captured on his way to being hung, being beaten, drugged to death. Give all that to your ancestors. It's time now. Give it all to the ancestors. Everything. This moment forth, give it to the ancestors. Give it to them. Call their name. Call them out. The ones you know, the ones you don't know. Call their name. Family. Your family is your ancestors. Your big mama, your big aunties, your great aunties and uncles. Their ancestors now. Give it to them. Tell them you're going to give it to them. You're giving everything to them now. All the credit, all the love, all the forgiveness, all your trust. You're going to have to. I know we've been brainwashed that Jesus said that the Bible said that God is a vengeance. God don't put none other him and stuff, but we got new information now. That's the white man's God that he gave you. We need to go with ourselves now. Your people. Trust your ancestors now. Something new. Elevate your mind. Elevate your mind. Miss Celie. Oh, Miss Celie, I cried when I found her. She turned and opened her arms to me. The other boys were fast asleep, and the cabin was still. I ran to her crying. She held me in her long, hard arms and said, "Son, the Lord himself just spoke to me. He told me John Henry will be all right." I began to sob uncontrollably. Poor Miss Celie. The noise awakened the other boys. But maybe John will escape. Maybe he'll escape. "Is John Henry all right?" Isaiah asked frightened. "Yes, son, yes," answered Celie. "The Lord has just told me he is all right." I cried so hard. The other boys were suspicious. "Had you heard something?" Isaiah asked finally, drawing near to me and kneeling down where I was sitting on the floor. Between sobs, I explained that they had caught John Henry and had him down in the hollow. Her ass sitting up there talking about he's saved. He gonna be all right. Yeah, somebody put some poultice on him. If he survived, what they finna do to him? But he tried to escape, and then he's with Tennessee. "They's gonna hang him tonight," I cried. Miss Celie's face did not so much as flinch. Isaiah pounded his fist on the dirt floor. There was nothing any of us could do. There was nobody to turn to for help, except one. "The Lord has done said John Henry is all right," Miss Celie repeated. "Until they carry a dead man through this door and lay him here at my feet and tell me this is your son, John Henry, I'm going to believe God." So we going to believe Miss Celie then. All right, let's read, y'all. Because it's his story. This John's story. Robert's story. Robert Sadler. I stayed for about an hour, and then Isaiah insisted I go back to the big house. "It's dangerous for you to be here," he told me. "If they catch you tonight, they might kill you too. There's killing in the air." He was right. If I got caught between the house and the quarter, I could be hung. And they justified by saying I was trying to escape too, or I was stealing or conspiring. Some shit like that. I fell into a fitful sleep when the dawn was just beginning to brush across the top of the trees outside the window. I slept only a few moments because it was time to rise and begin the day's work. I hurried through my tasks. The overseers marched in for breakfast in their dining room, and I hung around near the door to hear their conversation. Surely they would talk about the hanging last night. They didn't talk at all this morning, though, and the only sounds I heard were forks scraping plates, lips smacking, chewing, and gulping. When they left for the fields, I was confused. Why didn't they talk about the hanging? Surely they knew. Finally, we heard the master's car pull into the driveway. Master Bill wasn't driving, Buck was. Big Mac hurried around the car, opened the door, and stood looking inside. I watched from the wooden steps of the porch. "He's passed out," Buck told Big Mac. "I had to carry him to the car. Here, help me get him upstairs. He ain't gonna walk, that's for sure." Together, the two men lifted the drunk form of Master Bill out of the car and carried him inside. When Buck and Big Mac came to the kitchen, there was nobody there but Mary Webb and me. "Set yourself down," Big Mac told Buck. We went to the slaves' table and bench. "This story you just ain't gonna believe," Buck began. "You just ain't gonna believe it. The likes of it ain't never happened in this world. Somebody saved John Henry." "What is it?" Buck wagged his head and then began. Last night, the master and the Cluxes went down to the hollow to string up John Henry. See, they found him just outside of Belton, walking along the railroad track. Tennessee had gotten on the train in Greenville and was far gone. There was no way of catching up with her. Poor John Henry. He had only enough money to buy one ticket. So he put Tennessee and her baby on the train, and he took to walking. He had already walked about 6 miles. Guess Master knowed they tried to get on the train, so he went to the stations right off. Well, when they picked up John Henry, they beat him and told him they were going to kill him. They carried him to the hollow over by Savannah River to hang him. Here's the part you ain't going to believe. I declare, I never seen nothing like it. Come on, man, tell us. Master come back home to get some whiskey or something or another, and then he wake me up on his way to the hollow for me to drive the car. Well, we gets to the hollow, and I sees John Henry lying there on the ground. They done beat him good, and he ain't making no sound. He is just lying there quiet like. Master says, we ain't gonna hang him here. We'll hang him on the hill by my horse barn. That way all my other niggas are seeing. So he tells his friend to throw John Henry in the trunk of his car. They throw John Henry in the trunk of the car, and then they gets on their horses and ride off. Master tells me to drive, so I start driving. Faster, faster, he yells at me. So I drive faster. Can you make this devil go faster? He yells. And so I say, yes, sir. And I come down on the gas to go faster. Faster, faster, Master yells. And we just ripping up the road. I don't know where he is having me drive because we long past his farm, but we go faster and faster, and he is yelling and cursing and drinking his whiskey. Then he tells me to get back. He tells me to get back, and so I turn, and we rip back to the farm for to hang John Henry. You ain't gonna believe this now. We gets out of the car. The other men are waiting. They open the trunk and look inside the trunk, and there ain't no John Henry in there. Wow, now, Big Mac exclaimed. That John Henry is just plumb gone out of that trunk. Looks like they opened it while we were ripping along, and John Henry rolled out. We went back to look for him, but he be long gone now. I hooted with joy. Hallelujah, I shouted. John Henry am a free man. I reckon he'll stay free this time, Big Mac said, slapping his knee with a cackle. If he got to town, he'll be all right. No hounds will pick him up from there. I declare, Big Mac sighed. I do declare. God himself must have come and opened that dirt trunk and let that boy out. I believe so. Ain't nobody said nothing about the ancestors. They said nothing about the ancestor before him, or Pearl or somebody didn't want him to experience the same thing and saved his life. Saved him. You know, yeah, just immediately give it all to God. Okay, I digress. But we did it. Honey, we made it to 16. If you do get you some hibiscus, you don't need that many. I got 5, and they fairly big. But you need to have plenty of water because this is tasting kind of strong and stuff because it's just a small cup. You probably only need 1 or 2. And on that note, with that cup right there, this right here will last a while. Put some of them in your pantry and stuff when you're prepping and stuff. But thank y'all, we did it. We did it together. I thank y'all so much. And look, we even got a little time to spare. Well, I did go over 1:30, but it's before 2 o'clock, right? And I ain't staying on keeping y'all to 3 o'clock no more. So yeah, I thank you so much. I really thank y'all. I really appreciate y'all being here, your patience and your presence being here, because I know it's difficult. I know it take me a minute, and sitting back and stuff and falling back and stuff. I'm about ready to faint sometime, but you be there. And I really appreciate it. If you go and come back, it don't matter. Just thank you for stopping through. Thank you for stopping through, because the ancestors are seeing everything. Everything, y'all. Mother Gaia and the cosmos, the ethers, they waking up. They waking up. When it comes to that crossroads, it could possibly be 10,000 earthquakes gonna happen on this planet right here. Yeah, because of all that's happening in the world. The white man done did all of this. And Mother Gaia is pissed. She wants to go back to her natural homeostasis of black people. She don't want white people on the planet no more. White people and other white people, I'm assuming. She don't want them on the planet no more. All because not only what white America has done to the planet, to the chosen people, to the pets of the planet, but all that they've done to everything they've done. Everything is all destruction and devastation, and Mother Earth is sick and fucking tired of it. And yeah, so Mother Earth, what is it, Mount Shasta? Mount Shasta is like the spine, is like the core of planet Earth. Just like we got a spine in our body, it's the core of us, you could say. Well, Mount Shasta is like the core, the spine of the Earth. And us being manifested from the cosmos, and the earth feels what we feel. And it's fucked up. It knows it's got to stand up for us because we still not strong enough to stand up for ourselves on our own. We are now. Oh, we getting our asses up now. But it's so many of us and stuff, and they know that we're so traumatized, and it's critical right now. So that's why we see all of this taking place. So don't be scared of it and stuff, honey. Yeah, go on and clear out that bullshit that you don't need. Set your boundaries in life. And let's just try to get to that level where we can elevate, and we can be on that same code with the cosmos, Mother Earth, and each other. We got to be on the same code, even if it's, and maybe not right there at that perfect level on code, but long as we on that motherfucking line. You ain't got to be at the front. You ain't got to be long as you on that line. You ain't got to be on the front line. Just get on the line. Just get on that line where the line is, the front line. But you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. But I love you. I thank you. And I process this. I'm definitely got to process this. We got to process all of these readings right here, especially at nighttime, because it's really graphic and it really sticks with you and stuff. And hopefully, it's committed to our memory because it's our life. These are our stories that we got to pass on, and we got to make sure our children know the good, the bad, the ugly, the savage, and the ravishness. They must know it. So, yeah, we got to learn it, and we got to commit it to memory. Start your personal library, too. You started your garden already, and I thank you, too. I can't wait till y'all tell me what you got, what you're growing, and so you can help me, grow my garden good and stuff. But I'm just saying, and also start your personal library, because we need books. We need books. Where's Betty before X? Have your books for you and your friends, my sister. And then you have books for the young adults, the teenagers, the adolescents. Adolescents can read this. You can get this right here to an 8, 10-year-old, 11, 12, 16. Yeah, Betty before X. You can give Betty before X to the children and stuff. And for the babies, then you want to get them what we were studying, which I ain't gonna pull them out no more. That's the one I had yesterday, and I got off track with it. I'll keep your ass here for another 30 minutes if I pull that book out over here. But I digress. But I love y'all. Please process this tonight and stuff. I'm gonna process it too. Keep some gratitude in our heart. Keep a song in our heart. And yeah, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna get through this. Ain't nothing we ain't gonna get through. We just got to do it together. We got to do this together. I love you. Peace and power to the people. And hey there, Christine, come back whenever you like. All right then. Oh wow. Okay, I guess. Yeah, if you feel the need. But I love y'all, family, and I will see you tomorrow or today.